Magmula po sa hanay ng mga magigiting na kabataan ng Bayang Pilipinas ay pinakikilala ko po sa inyo ang kagalang-galang at napakagandang Congresswoman Sara Ilago. Umaga po. So this meeting is propelled primarily because of the alarming daily updates of the fast-spreading disease and COVID. Nung una pong nabalita yan, nag-umpisa sa isa, naging 36, 80, hanggang kahapon po, February 4, ang inulat po sa atin ng Department of Health ay meron na raw pong 105 persons under investigation, which the World Health Authority has already declared as public health emergency of international concern. Alongside of equal concern, like what I mentioned, others are other emerging and mutating diseases like H1N1, yung swine flu po na dati na pong bumisita ho sa atin. Last week alone, nung isang linggo po, meron na pong 13 Taiwanese na buhay na kinuha po yung H1N1 nung isang linggo. Yung H5N1 na bird flu, which is also from China, also in the Yunnan province, and can be derived easily from infected chickens and other birds, and likewise can be deadly. Poliomyelitis or polio, a disease that can cripple or kill the victim, as well as the HIV/AIDS that continues to suffer the young, and as well as the old and all genders nowadays. These being serious diseases that endanger public health, we deem it most appropriate and high time to call you for a very progressive, proactive, and productive hearing. What heightens all of this is the fact that the recent victim, who was tagged as the first nCoV-related death outside China, fell ill and tried to survive the virus in the city of Manila while being cared for at the San Lazaro Hospital, together with another nCoV positive patient who, thankfully, is now recovering. The incident speaks loudly how very susceptible Metro Manila is and its citizens, 13 million citizens, to this virus, especially because Metro Manila hosts the airport, the seaports, where the virus may surreptitiously enter to cripple any of our cities. Just like what happened to Wuhan City in Hubei, China, where offices, malls, and other major establishments had to stop operations due to its lockdown. This scenario is scary because this may just happen anytime. And we must indeed consider this as an alarming public health concern and face it with all our might. Also, another public health emergency for international concern is the re-emergence of polio after almost 20 years of successful eradication in the year 2000. And sadly, Tondo in the city of Manila and similar barangays in other parts of the city of the metropolis may be the next unwilling victims. In fact, one of the 4 new cases was found in the NCR, as announced by the DOH on January 16, 2020. This being a 3-year-old boy from Quezon City. He marks the first case of the disease in Metro Manila since an outbreak was announced in September of 2019. Tunay na nakakahingal po. Hindi na po tayo nilubayan ng problema sa Metro Manila, magmula po sa traffic, sa basura, sa krimen, at ngayon po, mga karamdaman. At hindi basta-basta sila ay malala at mabangis na karamdaman. Hindi na rin po natin makukumpara po ang anuman o ang mas mabangis sa kung aling karamdaman, maliban sa nakamamatay ang mga ito. Ang polio, halimbawa, ay nakakaparalitiko, mabuhay ka man, buong buhay kang baldado. Samantalang ang susunod natin sa agenda, ang HIV/AIDS, ay wala pang kagalingan. Kaya po, sige po, pwede po kayong magbuntong hininga. On HIV/AIDS, from 1984 to 2015, the region with the most number of reported cases was in Metro Manila, with a case of 11,081, or a high of 44%. The Philippines has been ranked as the country with the fastest growing number of HIV cases in the world. The Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, UNAIDS, revealed in October 2019. Our country also registers the highest in HIV increase in the Asia-Pacific region. So the global community is keeping an eye on us. This meeting aims no finger-pointing. Ayaw po naming manuro kung sino man. But we simply want to look forward, to look for solutions, especially because, after all, the government has already created yesterday an interagency body to address the problem. Lahat po kayo, alam nyo na ang DOH ata, ang DOH po ang mangunguna ng interagency task force to address this problem, particularly pertaining to the ENCOV. On our part po, we filed a resolution that may help you po in containing those that may be or that may or indeed have contracted the disease. We recommend the quarantine site of Caballo. Nire-recommenda rin po namin Corregidor, a place we think is suitable to house the patients and contain the disease from spreading. C. Metro Manila needs this meeting as we have 13 million people in crowded cities. And yes, some of them are in crowded malls without them unknowingly knowing that the virus is right beside them. We are in the seat of power and commerce. You cannot ignore us. Our people are very important. At this juncture, let us begin with this game changer of recent time, the 2019 novel coronavirus. May we first call on our official from DOH.
Mr. Chairman.
DOH, hindi pa ba biological warfare weapon? Itong ENCOV, meron pong napapaulat na ganyan pong balita. But can you kindly narrate? But before you narrate, I think you will make a short presentation. Ano po? Who will do the presentation? Dr. Constantino?
Sir, Dr. Jem Arellano, the Program Manager on the Emerging and Re-emerging Infectious Diseases.
Sige po, Dr. J. But before I pass the floor to you, may I take advantage of this moment to, of course, recognize a colleague of ours. She represents the city of Malabon. She is also a deputy majority leader and also a better half of a colleague of ours. Let's all welcome Congresswoman Josephine J. Lacson Noel. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, ma'am. Also with us today is the representative of the party list Manila Teachers. He is a second termer and one of our distinguished colleagues in the 17th and 18th Congress. Let's all welcome Congressman Virgilio V.G. Lacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Magandang umaga po. So, Dr. Ruby?
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Dr. Ruby. Yes, sir. Congressman Ruby.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before we give the floor to the Department of Health, with your permission, allow me to give a manifestation. The opening remarks of the chairman gave an emphasis on the importance of this hearing and of the work of the House of Representatives. In fact, several of our colleagues have also filed legislation in response to the ENCOV outbreak in support of the Department of Health and its missions. Therefore, it is quite sad that the Secretary of Health is not present in this hearing. Yesterday, at the hearing in the Senate, mariin pong sinabi ng Secretary of Health na hindi naman na daw siya dapat inaasahan pa na gumawa ng mga trabaho ng mga nasa baba. In particular, yung pinag-uusapan yung sa contact tracing. He was emphasizing na ang work niya, Secretary, is nasa taas as a manager. On the way to this hearing, I heard over the radio that the Secretary is on the way to Nueva Ecija to inspect a proposed containment facility. So I guess this shows the type of priorities that the Secretary has. As the overall in charge of handling this crisis, I believe he should have been here. Hindi yung taga-inspector na lang na mga kwarto. So to the Department of Health, we appreciate your presence, but I'm very sure that there will be questions here that you will be unable to answer. And the inability to answer by the Department of Health, by the Secretary of Health, who is the overall manager of this crisis, will not help in uplifting the confidence of the people that we are managing this crisis well. Pakiparating niyo kay Secretary Duque. Ayusin ho niya yung kanyang priorities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There is a manifestation here by Congressman Rufy, and we are directing the Department of Health to relay the manifestation of Congressman Rufy to put forth the priority of this August body as a priority. Ma'am, Dr. Ruby, pwede po ba yun? Oh, thank you po. We will expect that po, and we expect to hear word from him kung ano po ang kanyang sasabihin. So, Dr. Ruby, sige po, you have the floor.
Sir, our program manager on NCOV will be presenting the updates on NCOV. Dr. Gemma Arellano.
Opo, Dr. Gemma, but can we ask the people in this room to keep their silence and maintain and observe proper decorum? Sige po, Doctor, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning. So we have the presentation there in front, but thank you very much. So now I'm going to present the updates of the novel coronavirus. So the outline of the topics, as you will see in the slide, is first an introduction to coronavirus, what it is. And then the second is the global update. This actually came from WHO, World Health Organization, which we work closely with. And then the third is the Philippine situation, the updates, the numbers as of yesterday. And then the virulence, the fatality rates, how many deaths globally and in the country. And then the last, what the DOH is doing, and public advisory with regards to prevention, how the public can protect themselves against the novel coronavirus. So you will see in the slide that the coronavirus is actually a family of the viruses and colds. And then we had starting 2003 and then 2013. 14, sorry. So for the 2003 is the SARS, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, and then 2013-14, the MERS-CoV or the Middle East respiratory syndrome. So all these two strains of coronavirus were actually very fatal to human. So compared or highly infectious to humans. So if you're comparing to the 4 normal ones, then the 2 are we had a lot of cases, a lot of morbidities and mortalities. Now comes the 7th strain, which is now the novel coronavirus. So the novel coronavirus, yes. So it was said that it's novel because it doesn't belong to the 6 already identified novel coronavirus family. So sorry, can you go back to the slide? So you can see in the slide that it's zoonotic because it actually started on December 31 when China declared to WHO that it actually, there were a cluster of cases coming from the point source, which is actually the seafood market in Wuhan, China. That's why it's called zoonotic, because it's actually coming, the assumption before it's coming from an animal, then it jumped to humans. It is same with SARS, it is same with MERS-CoV. So it started with bats for SARS, and then went to civet cat, and then to humans. For MERS-CoV, it came from bats, went to the camels, and went to the humans. So now this novel coronavirus, we actually, until now, the WHO hasn't declared which animal it came from, then it jumped to humans. So, but since then, since the assumption in the first weeks of the first days or first week of the novel coronavirus investigation, we have had cases of human-to-human transmission because January 1, the seafood market was closed. We were expecting that January 14, there will be no more cases. But since now, as you know, the numbers are increasing, so now it's already confirmed that there's human-to-human transmission. There's still no vaccine discovered. There's still no treatment discovered for coronavirus. So what we're doing, if ever the patients are admitted positive, they are given the supportive care. Meaning you treat the symptoms. And if it's, one thing to know is that for the coronavirus, it's actually extreme of signs and symptoms. You may have a very, very mild, even a febrile patient, and to the extreme, a very serious presentation, like acute respiratory distress syndrome. So it's a big range of signs and symptoms. So, but now what we're doing is really just supportive care because there's no antiviral created yet for the coronavirus. This one, the novel coronavirus. Next, please. Oh, the signs and symptoms. I'm sorry, because that slide has a lot. So the signs and symptoms. Going back to the presentation, first it's fever. Then you have the cough, and then you have respiratory syndromes, and then you have shortness of breath if it's really a severe presentation, and then difficulty of breathing. So some complain of fatigue as well. So as I was saying, there's a big range of signs and symptoms, but generally these 5 are the ones presenting in the cases or the ones under investigation. So this is a slide of the global update. So it's as of February 12 noon. So right now, the WHO has shared the information that we have 20,630 cases. We have 426 deaths. And then it's now all over in 23 countries. And if you compute the case fatality rate, meaning the number of patients dying of the having the coronavirus confirmed, it's 2.1%. So the map shows where the clustering of the cases, or at least the countries with the cases with the red dot. And then basically we have already in the Middle East, in Europe, in North America, and even Australia. So 6 continents, or 5 or 6 continents are already affected. Next. I forgot to say, like, the risk assessment of the WHO is that you have a risk assessment of disease spreading and causing morbidity and mortality global. So the risk assessment of WHO is high, and in region, like the ASEAN region, it's also high, but in China, in the national, where the point source of the coronavirus is very high. So the chances of you being infected is very high in China. In the region, it's high, and global, it's high. So this is a matrix. This is a table of the number of cases globally. So you will see in Western Pacific region, the countries affected: Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, Cambodia, and the Philippines. And then in the Southeast Asian region, we have Thailand, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India. Then you have in US, region of America, US, Canada. In the European region, we have France, Finland, Germany, Italy, Russia, Spain, Sweden, UK, and the United Arab Emirates in the Eastern Mediterranean region. So far, as I said, there are 425 cases globally and 64 deaths. Now for the Philippines, we have the situation in numbers. So as of yesterday, so there are 105 patients under investigation, and confirmed patients are 2, and then this is lab confirmation. And then you have current PUIs, meaning persons under investigation, you have 91. And then PUIs discharged from hospital, 12. So again, this is February 4 as of 8 a.m. And then the number of PUI deaths is 2. The timeline. So you will see in this timeline, there are 2 slides for the health event timeline. First, the progression of the disease in the Philippines. And then second, we also incorporated what DOH has been doing since it was announced in December 31 about this coronavirus.
Ma'am, Dr. Gemma,
Yes.
can you clarify? Ang understanding namin, isa lang po ang naging biktima. Paliwanag naman, sino ba yung pangalawa ho na namatay? Is it due to NCOV?
So
ma'am?
it's a non-ARD 2019 NCOV ARD case. So PUI, remember the case where before we announced the confirmed case, there was the one case from San Lazaro that they were saying that it's positive, but actually the cause of death is maybe.
Is that because of pneumonia or is it because of HIV? Because it was reported earlier that it was not because of the NCOV.
It's HIV.
Oh, so why are you declaring here now that we have 2 death fatalities due to NCOV disease?
Yes.
So he was
Number
under
of
the
PUI
po.
deaths, sir, because
Okay.
he was considered a PUI, remember? So he's not a coronavirus death.
Okay, so tama po na isa pa rin ang fatality ng NCOV. Ano po?
Yes.
And the other one was due to HIV.
HIV.
Opo. Sige po, nililiwanag lang po. And can you kindly wrap up? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, pinadala niyo po lahat ng mga congressmen nitong
January 20, an NCOV task force was already created as of January 20. And then we also already released advisories, guidelines on the NCOV for the response. And then 22 control measures also were circulated, memorandum. And then that's the time that China locked down Wuhan. There was already an emergency meeting with the CAB. And then suspension of operations from Wuhan to Philippines. And then 24, the 5-year-old negative for NCOV, the first one. And then 27, there was already discussion of DOH and DFA together with DOH on the NCOV. And the next slide, because we know that risk communication is very important. That's why communication materials were actually made and already disseminated to the CHDs. So all this because now the problem together with the cases and the number of PUIs is the infodemics, dissemination of wrong information. 29, the hospitals were already prepared. They were told to prepare for for acceptance of PUIs. And then 30, then we have the first corona positive laboratory confirmation. And then the DFA, because we were having meetings already with the interagency task force, so they already had the voluntary repatriation of Philippines in Hubei. So that's also going to be discussed as part of the plan. That's why our secretary was there, because now we want in the week, we would like to bring home the 40 OFWs who really said that they want to go home. That's part of the priorities of the discussion, the interagency task force. And then the next slide. So we actually, just this slide, we included in the discussions the medical societies and also all the other government agencies in the planning for the next move in order to tackle this coronavirus. Next. So this is the timeline of the patients. So the first and the second 2019 nCoV cases. So we have first the onset of, so they're actually partners coming from Wuhan. So 38-year-old female and the 44-year-old male. And then the onset of fever 18, and then anyway, I'm not going to go through the where they went, but they were admitted on January 27. And then they were actually, specimens were taken and laboratories were sent to Australia for the confirmation, and they were isolated in San Lazaro Hospital. The result the result of the 30-year-old female came out first, being positive, and then the result of the 44-year-old male was came out, but eventually he died on February 1. So what are we like for the public? Because I know this is a novel coronavirus and we're trying to tackle or even contain the spread of the virus, but we really need the public to help us with the protection measures, because that's the only way we can actually prevent the spread, if the people will help us. So all individuals, it's very important to really maintain, just like any other infectious diseases, hand hygiene. Because they think that because it's respiratory, just wear a mask. No. Actually, we already corrected the wearing of the mask. DOH is actually advising only the sick people, only the ones with the cough, the flu, to wear a mask. The general public is not well. We're not encouraging everyone to wear a mask because it's not airborne, it's droplet. So when a person coughs, sneezes, and then the droplet, that's the mode of transmission right now. It's not like TB, like airborne. So the mask is actually to protect you if ever there's, when the sick person is wearing the mask, then it protects you. Then the hand hygiene, you don't wear a mask and not wash your hands, because even if you wear a mask, if you keep touching your face, your hands, your nose, then you still get, because the fomites, it stays in the the surface of inanimate objects, then you can get it. So next, avoid symptomatic individuals. This is part of the distancing, because if you know that there's someone in your community, in your household, that's already sick, then you can wear a mask, because then you have to protect yourself. Both of you are wearing masks. So basically, you have to avoid already those having symptoms. Third, proper coughing etiquette. So we are promoting actually the elbow. You use your elbow like this when you cough. So some, they use, like, DOH has been promoting this ever since. So use the sleeve of your clothes, and then, but basically, in order not to spread whatever virus you have, whether it's coronavirus or influenza, it's influenza season also, you have to practice proper cough etiquette. Consume enough water. So since any viral infection, you really have to increase your immunity. You have to increase fluids. That's why the Secretary was saying in vitamins or malunggay, it's not basically a treatment, but actually to increase your immunity. And then immediate consultation, very important. Once you have symptoms that you have, like, for example, you travel from China, you travel from an area where there is a PUI or basically a lab confirmed, if ever. Then, if you have signs and symptoms, consult the health facility, because then we can identify, we can do laboratory confirmation or inspection, and then probably if we would need to isolate if you fit the decision tool. The DOH has a decision tool, a matrix, which one to be considered as PUI and which one to be considered only for monitoring, not to be admitted. So that's for the individuals. So it's very important, the travel of history. If you know someone having travel history from China, it's not only Hubei now, it's actually China we're monitoring, all flights. I forgot how many cities in China are on lockdown already, not only Wuhan. So now all our Bureau of Quarantine is doing that. All flights from China are being screened, thermal scanning, and the yellow declaration form in order to identify these persons. Then we will advise the self-quarantine, actually a quarantine of 14 days. Why? Incubation period is 2 to 14 days and average 10 days. So we take the maximum days of the incubation of the coronavirus. That's why when the person is tagged for quarantine, it's 14 days. And even the Philippines we're going to bring home, the quarantine is 14 days, and that's why we will put them in the center in Nueva Ecija, Fort Magsaysay.
Ma'am, can you wrap up lang ho, Dr. Gemma?
So yun lang po, yun yung last slide ko. Yung health facilities po, we're trying to capacitate now in order to accept and manage the cases. Thank you po.
Thank you po, Dr. Gemma. You're talking only of the NCOV, ano? But the other diseases like HIV/AIDS, H5N1, H1N1, at saka yung polio, we will discuss in a few minutes. But before I proceed, I'd like to welcome also and acknowledge the arrival of two of our distinguished colleagues. One needs no further introduction since the last name is very familiar, not only in television but also in public office. He hails from Cavite. Let's all welcome the former mayor and the chairman on the Committee of Housing. Kaibigan po namin si Congressman Strike Revilla po from the 2nd District of Cavite. Opo. Also with us today is a newcomer, a first-time congressman. He is a former 3-term councilor from Quezon City, representing the 3rd District. Let's all welcome Alan Benedict Reyes. Opo. Ma'am, like what I mentioned earlier, this committee aims to be proactive. This committee aims to be productive, and this committee aims to be forward-moving. Yung mga napag-uusapan po, napakarami ng napag-usapan, we do not want to dwell on that. And just a reminder to all my colleagues na for purposes of expediency, if before I pass the floor to you, kung pwede po yung mga naitanong na, ay wag na po nating pag-usapan at maliwanag na po yun. At ang pag-usapan po natin ay una po sa lahat, yung task force. A task force was created. And by what virtue is this, if you would know? Number 1. Number 2 po, the President has already allocated 2.25 billion pesos. And if there is a need for more funding, you have to declare this right here and then. Dahil dito po magmumula. Dito po in this honorable body, mag-uumpisa po yun. Paano po namin malalaman kung wala po si Secretary Duque dito, kung kayo po'y nangangailangan ng pondo, kung tayo po'y maglalagay ng quarantine kung saan man, kung sa Nueva Ecija, sa Caballo. Paano po namin malalaman kung wala po siya rito? Ewan ko kung masasabi nyo. Ngayon po, yung task force, to which we understand, has already been created since the past dispensation, and this was true by virtue of Executive Order 168, if I'm not mistaken, you are just reviving it, with the chairperson as the Department of Health. Tapos ang mga membro nyo po, DFA, nandito po sila, yung DILG, DOJ, yung DOLE, DOT, at DOTC. Tama po ma'am o mali po? Ano po bang inyong kinatatayuan tungkol doon sa task force? Do we need to do any legislation as far as the task force is concerned? Number 2, yung pondo po, pinaliwanag ko naman kanina ho, baka naman kaming nasa Kongreso makatulong po.
Yes po.
Ang pananaw ho namin, with a diabolic problem like the NCOV that is multiplying in a pace faster than the speed of light, kailangan po, we should be proactive in this. So yung 2.25 billion, ang intindi po namin, it's purely for the allocation of the health workers. Health workers sa pagbili po ng garment, yung maskara na sinasabi naman po ninyo na hindi naman pangangailangan. Baka naman po yung nalaan na pondo na yan kung saan mapunta ho. Kaya pwede ba niyong ipaliwanag rito? Hindi naman ho namin alam kung anong gusto ninyong gawin dyan. So ma'am, sige po, kayo po ang pwede magsalita po noon. Sige po, you have the floor, Dr. Gemma.
Okay po. Meron po yung sa slide ko, yung members ng Interagency Task Force yung last. Anyway, ang basis po noon yung Executive Order 168. So it's an interagency task force at the national level signed by the former President Aquino. So it's at the level of the Office of the President. So we started...
Ma'am, have you reactivated that? Have you met? Have you convened? Nag-usap na po ba kayo?
Yes po. Kaya ngayon na-update yung twice.
28 and 31. Tama po.
Yes.
Sige po.
So, yung first meeting kasi, it's actually well, we had a bigger audience or group of participants in January 31 sa Diamond Hotel. Okay, so yung members po, yung DILG, DepEd, CHED, the ones who attended, DepEd, CHED, DOLE, DTI, DOT, DOTR, DFA, NDR, RMC, and nakalimutan ko pa ibang participants. But anyway, binase po yan sa Executive Order number 168. So all the primary members of that, it was drafted ng SARS time. So all those 6 members, if I remember right, I don't have the paper now, DILG, DFA, so there are 6 primary members in order to be mobilized by the Office of the President, and we added more. So yung DepEd, yung mga hindi kasama doon sa 6, Executive Order number 168 po siya.
Salamat po. Mabuti na lang na-clarify din ninyo ho, dahil yun ang intindi po namin. So as far as the House of Representatives is concerned, you are claiming now that hindi na po ninyo kailangan ng any legislation to amend.
Kasama
or
po doon sa slide, yung Congress,
Opo, dahil
saka
executive order po
DBM.
yun, galing kay Presidente.
Pero kailangan po kasi yung Congress po saka DBM kasama po siya with regards to the legislative part and also DBM for the financial.
So there is an amendment to that executive order that was
Yes po.
created 2014.
Yes.
Eh, nasaan po yung amendment na yun? Pirmado na ni Presidente.
I will have to ask.
Opo.
Kasi
Sige po.
umiikot pa po siya sa DOH, hindi ko na alam kung saan stage.
Naririto rin po isang miyembro ninyo, si Yusek Dulay. Yusek, can you expound on this? Dahil I do not know. And can you confirm if you were part of this task force? And ano po, alam nyo, meron po mga alingas-ngas na nababalitaan na sinasabi po ni Secretary Duque due to the contact tracing, may nasisisi pong mga ibang kumpanya na airline. Pinabulaanan naman po ng mga airline na yan na hindi naman po totoo daw yun. Ano po ba ang talagang tunay na nangyayari? Dahil pati si Presidente po kagabi, ang information niya, nahihilo po tayo pare-pareho dahil parang wala pong coordination. Yusek Dulay, can you confirm or attest if a task force was convened? And ano po ba ang in a nutshell ang inyo pong napag-usapan kung sakali po? Paliwanag nyo nga po.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honors. I confirm that the task force had been convened, and just to update the body, Mr. Chair and Your Honors, they already had 3 meetings. There was 3 meetings already of the task force. The latest one was the day before, if I'm not mistaken, and this was presided by the President himself. There was a meeting in Malacanang. It's a cabinet-level meeting where the President himself convened the task force regarding this problem, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. Now, what we would like to emphasize is that so far as the department is concerned, the problem of the NCOV is a medical and a health issue. So our Secretary Locsin, has always taken the stance that the DFA takes the lead from DOH, being a member also of the task force, which is why we attended the meeting of the task force, because we needed to get guidance on the NCOV issue as a medical and health concern rather than a diplomatic concern, Mr. Chair, Your Honors.
Thank you, Yusek. So in other words, what you're trying to impute in this committee is that you will follow the lead of the DOH. Tama po ba ho?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that has been pronounced by the Secretary himself also, that we take the lead from DOH, Mr. Chair.
Opo. At yung meron po kayong napabalita na inisyo na travel ban. Sa inyo po ba nanggaling yun? Dahil pinabulaanan din po, no less than the President, na may travel ban, especially to the Chinese nationals.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, the instruction came from the Office of Executive Secretary Majildea, and I think that it's been a public knowledge already that the Executive Secretary issued the guidance for all of the agencies to follow. And I think included in that particular issuance from the Office of the Executive Secretary are the limitations, restrictions on foreign nationals traveling to the Philippines. I would just like to emphasize that in that advisory issued by the Office of the Executive Secretary, it was very clear that this does not single out any particular national, but says foreign nationals. So everyone from Hubei, from China, is effectively restricted from coming to the Philippines, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Yusek, you are claiming also here now that any foreign national that has landed in any part of China has to be under quarantine, yun po ba ho? And also, samantalain ko na, yung pong repatriation ng mga kababayan po natin, ano po ba ang plano ng DFA? Dahil you mentioned earlier that you're also needed in a meeting in 30 minutes. So, Yusek, sige po.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, I think the best evidence for the contents of the advisory would be the official statement coming from, or circular coming from the Office of the Executive Secretary. We can furnish a copy. It has been received by all of the agencies, and we can furnish the Honorable Committee a copy of that particular issuance. Mr. Chair, just to update the body on the current efforts for repatriation, the DFA, Mr. Chair and Your Honors, are processing now all of the permits and clearances for the repatriation of our Filipinos in Hubei province. Right now, Mr. Chair, there are 42 Filipinos who have signified their intent to join the repatriation. 2 have backed out, and then 2 have come in, so it's basically maintained at 42, Mr. Chair.
Lahat po yan, Yusek, galing po sa China, or are they coming from different parts of...
Mr. Chair, we would just also like to clarify that the repatriation is really meant for Filipinos in Hubei, because our nationals in Hubei are the ones that are restricted to travel, which is why they are the ones that we are, specifically Wuhan, they are the ones that we are repatriating back to the Philippines, Mr. Chair.
Thank you po, Yusek. Can you furnish this committee a copy of that directive that you were talking about earlier? And
yes, Mr. Chair, and also I will also work with I'm sure all of the agencies also have, but will furnish the copy received by DFA, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And also, when is your planned repatriation of these Filipino compatriots of ours?
Well, Mr. Chair, right now, as you know, the Chinese government had set certain protocols. They have certain rules, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. Being the foreign national in China, we work with the host government rules. So right now, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, our team is getting all of these clearances from the different offices in China, mainly the one in Beijing, another permit being secured from Shanghai, which covers the Wuhan area, and then another one from the provincial government of Wuhan. So we are working with all of these different agencies in China, Mr. Chair, to get the necessary clearances for the repatriation.
Yusek, it is, you mentioned earlier, even Shanghai is included. Napakalaki pong bayan nun yan.
Well,
daming Pilipino huro na.
Mr. Chair, in respect of Shanghai, it has our embassy in Shanghai has administrative jurisdiction over Wuhan. So that's part of the consular jurisdiction of our consulate in Shanghai, Mr. Chair. Now, I would just like to clarify, Mr. Chair, in respect of the other parts of China outside Hubei, there is really no lockdown. Filipinos, foreign nationals, Chinese are free to travel. However, even before the coronavirus outbreak came about, there's always been a rule in China that moving to different regions requires the permit of the different regional LGUs, I would say. So they are not really, in a sense, allowed to reside or travel residences. So just to give context, Mr. Chair, that even up to now, there are flights from mainland China leaving mainland China except only in the lockdown area in Hubei province, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Yusek, as of date, you have 42 registered compatriots, Filipino compatriots that will be that you are working on. Tama po ba ho?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
these are the Filipinos that asked to be to join the
Yes, and you will
repatriation.
be the lead agency with regards to the repatriation. Tama po?
On the ground, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Okay, and as soon as you repatriate them, what is the plan? Will you turn them over to DOH for quarantine or ano po? Anong...
Well, Mr. Chair, we work closely with DOH again. As we said, this is a medical issue, a health issue. So we are working with them on the protocols for containment of infectious diseases. And this will cover both the flight that leaves Manila, that ends up in Wuhan, as well as the flight bringing back all of the repatriates to the Philippines, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for that information. And later, from the DOH, maybe you can expound on the protocol. But before I give you that floor, I'd like to make mention of the arrival and acknowledgement of one of our colleagues. She is representing the party list ACT teachers at she's very vocal sa ating pong Kongreso. Let's all welcome our good friend, Congressman Franz Castro. Po. Yes, Congressman Rufy, you were interjecting. What is your point of
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with regard to EO 168, that was the topic of discussion earlier. If I may ask the Department of Health, was it Secretary Duque who initiated the convening of the task force?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
On January 28 was the first meeting.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were talking about being proactive earlier. And an outbreak is not something like a volcanic eruption that can happen and catch us off guard. Yung outbreak sa China was first reported December 2019. And at that point, how did the DOH look at that outbreak? Naramdaman ba ng DOH or naisip ng DOH na maaaring dumating sa atin yun or not?
So, Your Honor, if you will see po sa timeline, since January 6, January 8 was our first meeting. We had an DOH task force. So that 28, 31 is concerned involving other agencies now. So we had our own in the DOH, all the bureaus concerned, all the attached agencies of DOH. We had the inter-bureau task force.
Yes, and from there, alam nyo na nagbubrew sa Wuhan, China, right? January 22, I was listening to a radio interview. At sinabi dun nung ini-interview, sabi niya, may direct flights from Wuhan to Kalibo. January 22 yon. And at that time, ako personally, I was at that level of alert na nabigla ako na bakit mayroon pa pala tayong direct flight from Wuhan wherein alam na natin dun pumuputok yung outbreak. Wuhan going to Kalibo. So nag-verify ako sa CAAP and they told me, yes, there are flights directly from Wuhan to Kalibo 3 times a day, as well as flights going to Clark and going to Cebu. So kung yung ating interagency task force on emerging infectious diseases was already aware of that outbreak in Wuhan ng January 6, how come noong January 22, parang wala tayong proactive na pagkilos na isara yung maaring pagpasukan ng carriers ng virus na yon. So ang action ko was to write CAAP to suggest that flights be suspended. That was January 22. Noong January 23, nag-lockdown na by orders of China. Nag-lockdown ng Wuhan. So I would say na yung fears ko was not unfounded. My question is, bakit ako, na I'm not part of DOH, I'm not part of your emergency response, naisip ko yun. Bakit kayo hindi nyo naisip yun?
Excuse me, Dr. Gemma, before you reply, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the director for from the Philippine National AIDS Council, si Director Dr. Maria Luisa Orozca. Ma'am, Ayun po. Oh, welcome po. Also, I'd like, on another lighter side, very lighter side, I'd like to make mention of a colleague of ours, a former three-term congressman, former mayor of Bacolod, and he wants to listen to the proceedings, and now a president of the Wrestling Association of the Philippines, former congressman, former mayor, Monico Pentebella. Kasamahan po natin yan. Ayan po, andyan po siya. So sige po, Dr. Gemma, sagot po kayo ho.
Okay po, Chair and Your Honor. We knew, I forgot, I was trying to look kung kailan namin na-identify yung, there were 4 airports in the Philippines with international flights coming from China. And then, ang action po ng committee and task force ng DOH is actually to make sure that the Bureau of Quarantine already has the active screening or passive screening of those 4 airports, and also for the Epidemiology Bureau to be on alert for possible PUIs after the screening of the BOQ. So that was for the action. With regards to this restriction flight, at that point, I don't think, well, there was no directive of stopping flights from Wuhan because CAAP, the other interagency, wasn't in yet. So I think that's why January 22 lang po yung CAAP nag-take into action.
You know, yung pagiging proactive, like I said, no, magsisimula dapat sa inyo po yun eh. If DOH, as head of the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases, had that proactive sense na, wait, bukas tayo sa Wuhan, no, direct flight. Parang dapat nagkaroon tayo ng action, at least to recommend or what. I know, hindi pa kasama sa... Pero kasama ang DOTC dito sa EO 168 eh. So dapat talaga nagkaroon, I feel that nagkaroon ng more proactive action. I'm pointing this out kasi in the future, just like the big one, na earthquake, we are sure that there will come another contagion that is much stronger, that is much faster in transmission. Imagine na lang po natin kung yung MERS-CoV na 35% ang mortality rate, what if kung yung MERS-CoV ang nakapasok sa atin ngayon? nCoV is 22% mortality rate. MERS-CoV is 35%. Yung rate ng transmission siya ngayon, imagine po natin kung gano'ng kalakas yung virus na nakapasok sa atin, wherein we could have prevented it kung proactive tayo mag-isip. Kaya ko po pinopoint out ito ngayon at this time. Let us take this advantage that the virus is not that strong. Let us take the advantage of learning from this experience. Kasi dumaan na tayo sa 2003 SARS, dumaan tayo sa 2009 swine flu, there was 2012 MERS-CoV. What have we learned? EO 168 was issued by the President in 2014. Anong ginawa natin to utilize this? Now, if I may ask, sabi niyo po, yung sekretarya nagsimula ng convening. What is the trigger for him to start that?
Because it was actually the report of the cluster of cases in Wuhan. Because it was declared December 31, and this January 4, we were already communicating with regards to these cases increasing. So, January 8 nga po yung first meeting, if I remember right, and then within DOH.
Okay, if ang pakiramdam na ng DOH at that time was ganun na ka-intense ang concern natin dapat, how come it seems that it is only now that we are seeing some concrete action? I mean, I'm sorry, pero yung fiasco na nakita natin sa Senado kahapon, members of the Interagency Task Force fighting among themselves, pointing fingers. Isisipin na lang natin na we're trying to tell people not to panic, but then when we see yung managers of the crisis among themselves pointing fingers and seemingly not knowing what to do, how can we help people and tell them na not panic? So, dito ho kasi sa kahapon lang, want to point out, parang nagkakaturuan kung bakit hindi nasimulan agad yung contact tracing. When in fact, EO 168 already gave the Secretary the authority, even to the private sector. It says here, the task force may call upon any department, bureau, office, agency, or instrumentality of government, including government-owned and controlled corporations, government financial institutions, local government units, non-government organizations, and the private sector for assistance as the circumstances and exigencies may require. The Secretary could have used the power that's given to him by EO 1668 to compel those private companies kung talaga nga silang hindi nagko-cooperate. That is why I was telling you kanina, I'm sorry, no, na importante yung presence ni Secretary Duque dito sa hearing na ito because there will be questions that only he can answer. If I ask you now, what code alert are you in right now? Wala. There's no issuance kung anong code alert kayo. May namatay na nandito, wala pa tayong code alert kung anong color.
Congressman Rufy, sorry for the short interruption. Alam mo, while you were quoting the EO, there is a next paragraph that is very important. That is the reason why we require the Secretary of Health to be here as not only as a secretary but the head of the task force. Simply because this executive order creating the task force has given him enormous powers. Ito po, bilang karagdagan sa sinasabi ng ating kagalang-galang na Rufy. Further, the DOH secretary may recommend to the President the enlistment of the armed forces of the Philippines to supplement the PNP and other law enforcement agencies for the purpose of enforcing the quarantine of specific areas or facilitating the transport of EID patients and for such other purposes for the effective implementation of this order. All he needs to do, if he cannot physically do it, is nakita po natin sa periodiko, binubulangan niya po ang presidente. Eh, ano ba naman yung sabihin niyang meron pa pong pumapasok na ganito pong mga eroplano sa atin. So, that is the reason kung bakit sana po mapaalam nyo at mapaabot nyo sa kanya dahil nakaraan na po yun. Ang iniiwasan natin is to avert a further entry of this contagious disease. So, I do not know if I'm mistaken, Congressman Rufy, but that is what we are trying to interject in this committee. Now, sorry to bother you, but the USEC of the Foreign Affairs has 10 minutes to say. At bago po kayo mamaalam, bago tayo magpatuloy, siguro po meron kayong huling pananalita as far as the Foreign Affairs is concerned po.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honors. I would like to update the Honorable Committee, Mr. Chair, and Your Honors. We have been working closely with the Chinese Embassy, Your Honors, and in respect of both our nationals in China as well as their nationals in the Philippines. As you know, Mr. Chair and Your Honors, there are also a lot still remaining Chinese nationals in the Philippines. And we are helping also, Mr. Chair, to repatriate them back to China because the problem now is that there are a lot of flights, I understand, that have been canceled, and we are working closely with them to help them, to assist them to repatriate their own nationals also from the Philippines, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Is it not right that for all intents and purposes, we do not know if the virus is still in her body, even if the cadaver is already... Ano po ang balak ba ng DOH? Kailangan ba nating sunugin yan o ano po? Baka kahit patay po yung tao po, nandiyan pa rin yung sakit. Ano bang, what is your solution to that? DFA, ano po, are you telling, since it is a health concern, you've mentioned already that you will repatriate the deceased body. Ano po, you're working on it. But as far as the medical concern, the health concern is, ano po ang ano nyo? Are you passing it on to, or are you asking the DOH on before you repatriate? Kasi mas madali namang ipasa yung abo kaysa sa buong bangkay po.
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, I would like to clarify that the issue of cremation, I think, is with respect to the Chinese national in the Philippines who died here. So it's not an issue for DFA to repatriate the body, Mr. Chair. In respect of the repatriation of the Filipinos, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, again, we are very careful to work alone because this is, again, will follow the protocol that will be given to us by the
Sorry
Department
to
of Health.
interject, Yusek, pero ang binabanggit ko po, yung subject po na nanggaling sa Wuhan, yung Chinese na namatay, na yung Chinese national. Not the Filipino-Chinese, but the Chinese national. The cadaver, so ano po ang balak ninyong gawin? Yun po, binanggit nyo kanina kasi, to our understanding is that you are trying to make representations on how to repatriate. Ito namang Chinese national na namatay po.
Well, I think first, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, the issue of the body which is here in the Philippines, the Chinese national who died, that is first a medical issue. So we're waiting. I think the pronouncement of Secretary Duque is that they would like it to be cremated, but they are having difficulty finding a crematorium who would accept the body. We have also, Your Honors, Mr. Chair, conveyed the same matter to the Chinese embassy, and they are working with us to find a solution, Mr. Chair.
Yusek, from what I gather, some of our colleagues here might not be informed.
Yes.
But the EO 168, to what Congressman Rufy is mentioning and I myself, is a very authoritative and powerful executive order. Binanggit ko kanina yung maliit na paragraph, ilang salaysay lang po, bubulong lang po, at i-inform lang niya ang ating Commander-in-Chief. Yung buong kasundalahan pwedeng gumalaw. Now, when we talk about national concern, the interest of the public, siguro hindi naman natin kailangang antayin yan dahil if the DOH declares that even the person is dead, kahit bangkay na po yan, pero kung nandyan po yung sakit niyan, it's useless na we're talking here dahil andyan rin po ang sakit na pwede pong maipasa. Yes, you were interjecting, Congressman Rufy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the authority of the Secretary of Health is not just even limited to EO 168. Republic Act 11332 in Section 7 gives the Secretary a power. The Secretary of Health shall have the authority to declare epidemics of national and or international concerns. By that very power of declaration, he can make things happen in government and even outside government. And ang nakakabahala dito, yun lang tinanong ko kanina kung anong code alert na ba tayo, hindi masagot ng mga taga-DOH. You have a manual of operations, this thick, with regard to handling medical emergency or public health emergencies. It says there, it prescribes there kung anong code alert. It says here that the Secretary of Health is the overall incident commander. Itong krisis na hinaharap natin, na banta sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino, siya ang incident commander. Sa kanya manggagaling ang kautusan. Lahat ng ahensya, DFA and others, mapapasailalim sa kanya. Now, kaya ito tayo nababahala kung ano ba ang priorities dito sa pag-attend sa problemang ito. Ang problema natin will not be solved by buying so many millions of masks. Hindi ito mariresolba ng pagbili ng tone-toneladang alcohol. Management problem po tayo dito ang nangyayari. Because as we can see now, pointing out, the authority is there. Nasa kanyang kapangyarihan, kaya hindi natin dapat nakita yung turuan kahapon sa Senado. If we want to calm our people down, the managers of this crisis should shape up.